The pounding on my door at 4 a.m. made my heart skip a beat. I threw back the curtains and saw Karen, scowling as usual, waving papers frantically. "You need to leave. I'm calling the police," she shouted. My farm sprawled over acres of land that had been in my family for generations. And yet here she was, acting like the ultimate authority, grabbing my coat. Still half asleep, I muttered under my breath, "Not today." "Karen," she shoved a thick envelope in my face, claiming it was an emergency notice from the HOA. Her forced urgency was almost laughable. I'd learned long ago not to fall for her theatrics. "Emergency?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Like the time you said my tractor was illegally parked?" Karen didn't answer. Instead, she stomped closer, waving her phone. "I've got the sheriff on the way. You're breaking the law." I stepped aside, letting her momentum carry her toward the porch railing. "Funny," I said. "I happen to know the real sheriff is tied up in a federal case prep right now." Her eyes flickered for a split second, but she didn't falter. "By now." My wife appeared behind me, hands on her hips. Karen froze just long enough for me to glance at the hidden camera it set up after last month's fake HOA visit. I smirked. This wasn't going to be her usual intimidation. "Do you really want to go on camera accusing me at 4 a.m., Karen?" I asked softly. She opened her mouth, but the words caught when I held up the tablet showing the security footage. Her face went pale as the grainy video displayed her stomping up the steps, waving papers, and shouting like she owned the place. I could see her plotting an excuse, but I didn't give her the chance. "This is my land," I said, letting the silence stretch. "The only emergency here is your obsession with control." She muttered something about lawyers and backed off, though I could tell her mind was racing. She didn't leave quietly. Of course not. But the tension had shifted. The first twist had landed. Karen had come for a raid. But my farm and my evidence were ready. I watched her stomp toward her car, imagining the frantic call she would make next. She had no idea that this morning would end with federal papers landing in her hands. The sun hadn't even risen, and I knew this was only the beginning. By mid-morning, the quiet mountain farm felt charged, like the calm before a storm. I checked the gates when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered cautiously. "This is the U.S. Attorney's Office. We've received a complaint about an HOA raid at your property. Can you confirm the details?" I froze, realizing Karen's so-called emergency had backfired faster than I'd imagined. "Yes," I said slowly. "I have security footage and witnesses." Everything she claimed was false. I could almost hear the shock over the line. The idea that someone had tried a 4 a.m. ambush against a private citizen. Before I could hang up, Karen's car screeched down my driveway. She jumped out, waving papers like a flag. "This is harassment. I demand justice," she shouted. I leaned casually against the fence while my wife quietly loaded the rest of the footage onto a backup tablet. "Looks like she's digging herself deeper," I whispered. Karen didn't notice me walking calmly toward her, hand on the tablet. "You do realize," I said, holding it up, "federal authorities are reviewing your actions right now." Her face went from smug to pale in seconds. That's ridiculous," she stammered, as if the word could erase the proof. Then the first real twist hit. Neighbors I hadn't told about the camera started appearing at the edges of my property, whispering and pointing at Karen's frantic behavior. One shouted, "We saw everything. Stop harassing him." Karen turned, realizing she was exposed to more than just me. Now, her bravado cracked. She muttered something about illegal recordings, but my wife stepped forward, phone in hand, footage ready to send directly to the authorities. "All recorded legally," my wife said. "We know our rights. Do you?" Karen backed toward her car, shaking, but not before one last desperate shout. "I'll get you for this." I simply smiled. The next move was already in federal hands. The mountain farm had survived the first raid, and Karen's empire of fake power was beginning to crumble. Even as the dust settled, I felt it bigger twists weren't over. This morning had only opened the first chapter of a battle she would regret. By noon, the calm returned, though my phone kept buzzing. Emails, calls, and texts from the federal office confirmed that Karen's emergency raid had triggered an official investigation. I leaned back on the porch, sunlight glinting across my fields, feeling a mix of relief and anticipation. Then Karen returned, this time trailed by a lawyer. She slammed the gate and yelled, "I'm filing a restraining order. You can't threaten me." I raised the tablet, calm and confident. "Threaten you? I think you mean documenting your trespassing and harassment." Her lawyer tried to interject, waving a folder. "Sir, these are," cut him off, "all legally recorded, backed up, and witnessed. You're wasting your time." Karen's face twisted with rage, but she realized the mountains weren't on her side. Then came the second twist. The local sheriff, my quiet ally, pulled up in his truck and nodded. "We've been watching this for weeks. You're in the clear. Let's make sure she knows that." Karen froze, eyes darting from the sheriff to the tablet. Her fake authority meant nothing now. Neighbors gathered, whispering about her antics. One muttered, "She's always acting like she owns everyone's land." Public exposure was proving a weapon far stronger than legal papers alone. Karen's last-ditch attempt to rip the notice from my fence failed. I grabbed her wrist gently but firmly. "Everything you've done is documented. One wrong move, and federal authorities will be involved." She recoiled, anger now tinged with fear. By mid-afternoon, she left in a huff, muttering threats as her lawyer trailed silently behind her. The sheriff gave me a small nod and grin, hinting at her upcoming court appearance. As I watched her drive away, I felt a surge of confidence. The morning chaos had set the stage for the ultimate twist. Karen's power was cracking, and my family's mountain farm wasn't just surviving, it was about to expose her completely. Late that evening, just as the sun dipped behind the peaks, my phone buzzed again. This time it was an official notification. Karen had been summoned to federal court for multiple false reports and harassment. I showed the message to my wife, and we shared a quiet, victorious smile. "Looks like the morning drama finally caught up to her," I said, but the third twist came faster than we expected. Karen, desperate to regain control, had launched a social media campaign painting herself as the victim. Her posts claimed I was intimidating her and breaking rules. Within hours, comments poured in, most siding with us after I calmly posted the footage of her 4 a.m. raid. The hypocrisy was glaring, and public exposure was already working in our favor. By nightfall, a reporter from a local paper had arrived, eager to cover the story, proving that Karen's schemes were unraveling faster than she could spin them. "People are fascinated by what happened here," the reporter said, setting up her camera near the edge of my property. I felt a mix of pride and tension. Our quiet mountain farm had suddenly become the center of attention. Finally, Karen's lies were being challenged publicly. Unexpectedly, Karen tried one last desperate move. She filed an emergency injunction, hoping to freeze the investigation. I chuckled softly when the sheriff sent me a text. "Good luck with that. They'll see through her claims in court. Evidence, witnesses, and the law made her desperate tactics meaningless." As we watched the stars emerge over the peaks, my wife leaned against me. "This is going to end with her completely exposed," she whispered. I nodded. The best part, she had brought all of this on herself. That night, the mountain air felt different, lighter, victorious. The twists weren't over, but one thing was clear. Karen's fake power had been shattered, and every move she made from here on would be under the bright light of justice. The next morning, tension returned, but it was tinged with anticipation. I received a call from the federal court clerk confirming Karen's first hearing. She had no idea that every claim she made at 4 a.m. was documented and ready for court. I could almost hear her panic as the clerk outlined the procedures. Preparing for the day, I noticed neighbors quietly gathering at the edge of my property, offering support. One handed me a coffee and whispered, "We've got your back." She can't scare all of us. That small gesture reminded me that public scrutiny had become a silent ally against her. When Karen arrived with her lawyer for last-minute evidence gathering, she found cameras rolling, neighbors watching, and the sheriff parked nearby. She tried her usual intimidation tactics, but everything was being recorded. I calmly approached, tablet in hand, and said, Everything you did at 4 o'clock a.m. is logged. Any attempt to harass us further goes straight to the federal judge." Then came the next twist. Her lawyer, clearly uncomfortable, whispered, "Sir, maybe we should step back." Karen snapped at him, but the damage was done. Even he could see the evidence and public attention stacked against them. As she left the property, slamming her car door, I realized the pattern had changed. Karen was no longer controlling the story. She was reacting to it, and every desperate step she took only dug her deeper into legal trouble. That evening, as I locked up the barn and watched the sun set behind the mountains, a quiet satisfaction settled over me. The 4 o'clock a.m. raid had been her explosive start, but now the twists were piling on her. My family's farm rights and reputation stood stronger than ever. By mid-afternoon, news from the federal court arrived. Karen's hearing was scheduled for next week. Her panic was obvious in emails she accidentally CC'd me on, her own lawyer warning her that the evidence was airtight. I couldn't help but smirk. The 4 o'clock a.m. raid had snowballed into a legal storm she couldn't control. Suddenly, another twist hit. One of my neighbors, a local journalist, uncovered Karen's history of filing false HOA complaints in other states. I read the old reports, each more ridiculous than the last. "Looks like she's got a pattern," I told my wife. "We're not the first, and we won't be the last to see through her act." This revelation added another layer of power to our position. It wasn't just about our farm anymore. It was about exposing a serial abuser. Karen, desperate, tried one more manipulation. She sent certified letters to the property board claiming I was intimidating her and demanded a personal meeting. I calmly forwarded the letters to federal authorities, highlighting her pattern of harassment. Her own documentation became evidence against her. Neighbors began stopping by more frequently, bringing food, support, and small tokens for the cameras. Their quiet presence amplified the pressure on Karen. She was no longer in control. Every action she took became a public display of desperation. That night, as I sat on the porch watching stars, I realized the bigger twist. Karen's obsession with power had set her up for her own downfall. The 4 o'clock a.m. raid was just the opening move in a chain of events that would end with her completely exposed, and our family standing strong, unshaken for whatever came next. Early the next morning, the federal court called to confirm that Karen's lawyer had requested a delay, citing personal emergencies. I couldn't help but chuckle. After all the drama she caused at 4 o'clock a.m., now she was scrambling to buy time. The court wasn't fooled, and neither was I. Then came an unexpected twist. The federal judge assigned a mediator to review her past HOA complaints. Within minutes, it became clear Karen had a long history of filing baseless claims and harassing neighbors. The mediator even contacted one of my neighbors, who confirmed everything from the early morning raid to her fake emergency claims. Karen's desperation escalated. She returned to my property, pacing outside the fence, shouting about rights and illegal recordings. I stayed inside, keeping cameras rolling. My wife peeked from behind the curtains. "She doesn't even realize she's making herself look worse," she whispered. I nodded. Every frantic move she made was another piece of evidence stacking against her. By late afternoon, her lawyer called to warn her that federal authorities were considering additional charges for harassment and false reporting. I overheard Karen muttering, "I can't believe this. This isn't fair." I smiled. Justice was unfolding naturally, without me lifting a finger beyond protecting my property and documenting everything. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, the tension eased slightly. The 4 o'clock a.m. raid had ignited a firestorm Karen couldn't control. Every twist, every desperate move had sealed her fate further. Our farm was safe, the evidence irrefutable, and the countdown to her ultimate exposure had officially begun. The following morning, I woke to a flurry of notifications. The federal court issued a temporary restraining order against Karen, preventing her from coming near my property. I read it aloud to my wife. "Looks like the law finally agrees with us." She smiled, but we both knew the battle wasn't fully over. Then the next twist hit. Karen tried to rally support online, posting videos claiming she was being silenced and attacked. She even tried to fabricate witness statements. But the truth was stronger. I uploaded a clear compilation of her 4 o'clock AM raid, her shouting, and her threats, which quickly went viral locally. Comments poured in, overwhelmingly siding with us. Her lies backfired spectacularly. By afternoon, federal investigators called to confirm details, requesting all footage, witness statements, and past HOA complaints. I handed everything over calmly, knowing that her repeated harassment was now officially documented. Karen's desperation had built the case against her without any exaggeration on our part. That evening, I saw her driving slowly past my farm, glaring, but keeping her distance due to the restraining order. I watched from the porch, feeling a quiet satisfaction. The person who tried to dominate and intimidate me at 4 o'clock AM was now powerless. Carefully navigating the edge of the law she had tried to manipulate, the mountain air felt lighter than ever. Karen's power was gone. Every frantic move she made had only ensured her own exposure. Our family, our land, and our peace were intact. The final chapter of this saga in federal court was about to write itself.